want to give you one down here?
Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, yeah. Let's start with you, Jody.
Okay, guys. Okay, guys, so we're going to do a Q&A for these phenomenal films that we've just seen there. So first of all, another round of applause, I think, while I step away from this. It was a roller coaster. I don't know how everyone else feels, but it was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, it makes us all filmmakers in the room really proud to be a filmmaker and, yeah, to be hearing these incredible stories that you guys have been telling. While we're deciding, if everyone else... Oh, sure. Sorry, I'm being summoned over here. I'm making too much noise with the microphone. So I always start a Q&A with introductions to everybody, so because obviously represent and celebrate which film you're involved in. So we'll go from right to left if you tell us your name and which amazing film that you represented here and which role you had in the film.
Hello, my name is Tatiana Keller, and my film was called Speechless, and I was the writer, director, and editor.
My name's Linda Reese. My film was Perfect Match. I was the director and producer.
Sarah Leva. Ooh. My film was Lioness, and I was the writer, producer, and actress.
My name is Rebecca Iliff. My film was Champagne for One, and I was the writer and producer.
My name is Danielle Savory. I was the director, one of the writers, and one of the producers of Heard.
I have two microphones. I'm Jody Moore Lewis, and I am the actress of Heard.
Fantastic. Now, every film has a story behind the film itself, as well as the script. So I'm intrigued to hear what the background and the inspiration to each of the projects was, while you guys think up all your amazing questions. So what inspired the story, and yeah, what was the background to it coming to screen?
I'm a huge fan of musicals, and I wanted to create a short film that had music incorporated into it. I was always kind of like the outcast in school, bounced around different little groups, and so I wanted a story of like a kind of like a silent protagonist, and I wanted to incorporate sign language, which my actor knew a lot about. He was kind of like my rock through the film, but yeah, I just really love musicals, and I love the piano, so I wanted to make a story revolving around that and the relationships between parents, especially the mother. So, thank you.
Amazing.
The writer of Perfect Match is the writer of a feature that I'm working on with her. And she lives in Boston, and I live in LA, and all our script meetings were always over Zoom, even prior to COVID. And one day we were sitting having our conversation, and she had a cat, and it kept walking back and forth across the keyboard like everyone's cats do when you're trying to work. And she kept picking up and putting it down. She's like, this cat drives me crazy. And she said, I had this really great cat, and he died. And she's a mom, she's got boys, dogs, cats, things, all that stuff. She said, we realized we've got to get another cat. And she said, I thought, fine, I'll just go to the pound and get a kitten like we did last time, and it'll be great. And she called up to see if she could go down, and they said, oh, no, we don't do it like that anymore. You have to go online. You have to look at the pictures. We have to check you out, make sure that you're okay. Then you have to like decide and pick. Then you have to come in and meet them and see if you connect. And she's telling me all this, and I'm like, it sounds like dating. You know, and then as I said it, I'm like, God, that'd make a great short. And I had been looking for something that I could do that was small. Because most of my stuff is much darker, and I tend to be bigger projects. And I wanted to go to festivals, and everybody would always say, oh, you know, I made my film for like $500 in my mum's living room. And I was like, why can't I do that? And so it wasn't my mum's living room, it was my living room. But that was part of the things. Like I wanted to do something small, wanted to do something at home, you know, with just a very few crew, and that story came along, and I'm like, that's perfect. So
The perfect match.
yeah.
Lioness was inspired by my time volunteering at a safe house, which is an undisclosed domestic violence shelter for women. One Thanksgiving, I was playing with the children so the mothers could cook and get the feast ready for their children. And I was playing with the kids, and I saw this woman. It literally was about 6 seconds. She walked from where, the dormitory area where they sleep to the kitchen, and I'm very sorry for this explanation, but it looked like a dinosaur had stepped on her arm. You couldn't tell the skin color. You couldn't tell. It was just one massive black and blue. And I was, you see stuff there, but I was jarred. The children, they were used to, unfortunately, that kind of violence, but I'm watching her just cook. And as a mother myself, like, what parents, what women go through to protect and to honor and to give the world to their children despite everything. And the script, I say I'm a writer in it, I wrote it, but it's like, there was one dialogue, one line, that's it. And it wasn't even my own, it was the little girl's. Because to me, there's sometimes words, they're just not enough. And if you were to ask me how much do you love your daughter? Oh, to the moon and back. Well, what does that mean? But seeing a woman peel off the trauma and the blood, the menstruation of the pad, the saliva, and just really just throw it all on a wall. I mean, yeah, that hopefully encompassed the depths of hell and the heights of just absolute love that, and hopefully it captured the tenderness and might that a woman will go through for her child or anybody that she loves.
Yeah, it was incredible, yeah.
So, Champagne for One is the name of a book that I released in February of 2022. And it's a collection of short essays, and I'm a humor writer, so it's like essays and satire about kind of the opposite side of being alone and the joys of solitude, and how I think society kind of gives it a bad rap, and we really have to learn to do it in order to be fully in relationship with other people and ourselves. So I will go into the background of the poem that you saw in the film, but essentially what happened was my brother is a director in LA, he's a filmmaker, and he was like, why don't I do the book trailer for you? So we ended up shooting that film and as the book trailer, and then it ended up like winning all these awards, and my book, of course, hasn't won shit, but the film is really doing well and has been its whole kind of this beast in and of itself. So that's really was the genesis of it, was from the book. And also afterwards, I have about 20 books that I brought with me. So if anyone wants a copy, I'd be happy to just give you one. So well, it's not a narrative, but it's essentially like a collection of essays and satire about kind of the funniness that happens in society's, kind of what society puts on you about being alone. And I got married at 40 and spent a lot of time alone, and I just thought, I kind of like it, I don't think it's so bad. So it's really telling the opposite side of this narrative around, like, we have to be in a relationship, we have to connect, we have to, we're supposed to always be with someone else, and it's kind of like, I don't know. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. So anyway. But thanks for coming, and hope everyone enjoyed it. And come see me after. I'm going to be sitting at that table. So just come, even if you don't want a book. Just say hi so I don't feel awkward.
Okay. I want a book.
So I don't feel alone. Oh.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I definitely want a book. Whew, I'm still reeling from the roller coaster of all the films. I can't even talk about my own film, honestly. I'm honored to be amongst the rest of you guys. My film came from my mentors telling me to write and direct what I know. So I wrote what I knew. And I tried to do it from a perspective of something I hadn't seen. I watched about 200 plus films at AFI that dealt with assault, and not one of them didn't show the assaultor. And so I really wanted to take it from the victim's perspective, the woman's perspective, and kind of this different twist on what for a while there, me and Jody were talking about was like kind of this gray area of what, you know, the concept of you actually bring this person home into your house and how is that perceived, and starting the conversation around that subject matter when it's not so black and white. And so I really wanted to portray that in a film, and I was lucky enough to find Jody to star in it with, and me direct her, and we made it happen. I'm still reeling from the rest of the films right now, so I can't talk much.
That was amazing. Congratulations. Isn't it fascinating? The stories behind the films are often just as fascinating as the films as well. So has everyone, anyone got questions to start off the Q&A? I can talk for Scotland, so it's fine. I'll quiz them all. Anyone get anything or any kind of reflections as well? Because as you say, it's been one hell of a roller coaster, you know, but amazing as well. That's the power of film, isn't it? So, anyone? Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to quiz you guys. So I wonder, oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand. I'll be over in just a tick. There we are. And if you can say who you're referring to the film. Yeah.
Yes, so for Champagne for One, hi, I'm Abby. For Champagne for One, I'm very curious how you synced up the voiceover with her reactions. Was it fed on set? And how did you, I mean, it seemed very natural, and I loved all of her, like, kind of like snide, like, as an actor, I thought that was hilarious, so I really liked her choices in that, too.
Yeah, so I can't take any credit for that. It's all my brother who, you know, he's like, take the credit, it's fine. But his vision was, he was having the actors say the lines as though we had no sound on set. So they were just saying the lines, he was feeding them the lines, and then they were saying it, and then we decided, okay, it's going to be too weird if they're saying all of it, so we decided which shots were going to be kind of just, you know, the voiceover in the back and then more of the scene. So it really, honestly, it's like it just kind of came together. We weren't really sure. This is why I submitted it to the experimental, because we really weren't sure if people would even respond, because it's kind of a weird, I've never really seen it done. So we just kind of played around a little bit, and that's how it ended up. But that is what we did. We had them say the lines, and we fed them the lines, and then we decided what to do with it afterwards.
Oh, I'll give you the microphone just in case they can't hear you.
My God.
Based on your experiences, was this around, you know, the trailer and how you envisioned it and your direction to him? Was this around one essay, or was it around multiple that were combined? Or?
So Champagne for One was the core poem in the book, and so and then the publisher wanted that to be the name of the book, so we kind of, it fell out from there. But in the book, you'll see it's like in the middle of the book. It's kind of the signature poem. So that's, yeah. I did everything back. I feel like I do everything backwards, so this just made sense. It's like, you know, did everything late. I did the film afterwards and figured it out afterwards. So anyway.
Oh, great.
So Danielle, I'd be interested, the name, Heard, right? And in the graphics, if I was watching at the end, there's the A in the parentheses. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about like that?
It actually, I can't take full credit for that one.
Okay.
It stemmed from the writer I worked with, Tia Napolitano, who was trying to find this kind of, how do we tie together when it was the elephants and they're with their mothers and daughters and herd. And so we kind of did this play on words a little bit and how we were doing it, and it's how it's really a mother-daughter story. Because when I first wanted to tell it, I kept going back to that. I was like, I really want to tell the story of a mother basically teaching her daughter consent. And like, how does that tie in and not tie in? I mean, that was coming from the true story of like, how do I write what I know, and then tying in the mother-daughter part. But so she kind of was like, what if we had this play on words with heard, and having your voice heard. So I have to give her the credit on that one. I would love to take the credit.
It's perfect. Yeah, it did look like Tia. Yeah.
It is, right?
From Cruel Summer? She was Cruel Summer?
The one from Tia from Cruel Summer. the
Correct,
Sherman,
yes.
right?
Yep, yeah.
I would make sure it was a great.
Yeah.
Yeah, same Tia.
Oh, yeah, now we've all got questions. I'll come back if that's, I'll work my way back.
A quick question about Heard also. I leaned over at the end of it. I was thinking that the little girl was perhaps your inner child up to a certain point. Is that a little bit accurate?
It's really supposed to be open-ended. It's
Okay.
really supposed to be open for interpretation, which one of my mentors, Paris Barclay, was like, they need answers. Audiences, members need answers. But I really wanted it to be a conversation starter. I really wanted it to be something that really sparked ideas and thoughts and opinions. So it's kind of up for interpretation.
Well, that was brilliant, so thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, there was one question here, then I'm making my way there.
So I guess it ties back to that. I was going to ask about Heard. When she mentions, what if I do something that hurts you, to her daughter, I was wondering what she meant by that, but I think now I see what she's talking about with, is it her inner child? Because the child's also narrating.
I did a little bit of back and forth, and I was trying to make it seem a little in the end, I gotta make sure I say this right so I'm not confusing. So in the end, I wanted the pregnancy test to be unknown what the results were. And I want this question to be, is this her talking to her younger self? Is this her talking to her child that came from a result of this? And I really wanted that to be a question. So the question of, what if I did something that hurts you would be, what if I aborted this would be one alternative, or what if I was just a horrible mother and just hurt you because I couldn't love you because you were a product of rape. So it was kind of supposed to be a little vague. What she was saying is, how could I hurt you? So it was supposed to be multiple things depending on your interpretation of the film.
I'm a reading coach, so I love to analyze all things.
Did I do a good job?
Yeah, great. It was beyond.
And here we are. There you go.
Hi, yeah, I guess I have a question about Heard also. This is the second time I've seen the film, and we've seen so many films the last couple of days where women are dealing with the outcome of being abused, victimized, put in terrible circumstances. And as I watched the film today, I was looking for another way a way to reframe it for myself. And I suppose that's what survivors of assault work to do. But oh, there goes the mic. So today when I watched it, it was much more about her facing, how do I make a decision about things in my life, about relationships, about behaviors that I engage in. And I found that to be a much stronger, more positive way of my looking at the film. Because as we had some exchange about this during the body autonomy block on virtual film fest, and now as I look at it, I mean, that's the real thing. She takes responsibility for some of what she's done. I brought this man into my home. I initiated a sexual encounter, and I then was not able to speak, was not able to be heard. I just took it, and now I'm dealing with the consequences. And what follows that has implications for how she lives the entire rest of her life. So I just found that very interesting, and I wanted to share that with you because it's a much larger response to the film and the issue than I'd had before. So
Thank you for sharing that. Thanks, Gail.
Another hand up.
My question is for Speechless. So I'm just curious, and you're in the grad student, so I'd like to know what school that you go to, and then also I wanted to know who composed the music, how did you come about, because you had, several songs in there, just want to know a little bit more about the music that was in there.
Oh boy. It's I just graduated from Huntington University, and the composer I'm so sorry for him, but his name is Justin Hank. I can't remember the last name for the life of me. I met him once during the process. He was a sweet guy. He came in a couple times for rehearsals to show the actors how to play the piano. He realized that the piece was very complicated to practice in a short amount of time, so he tried to avoid showing the hands as much as possible. But yeah, I told him I wanted to have one song that kind of connected to hot cross buns in the beginning, and then kind of evolved throughout the film to the song that you heard in the credits. Well, do you have any other questions? I'm sorry.
Excellent. And any more questions? I'd love to continue on the idea of the roller coaster analogy that we talked about, because filmmaking basically is the roller coaster, so is the films and everything. If everyone can tell us what was the, probably start with lowest, like the biggest challenge or the toughest part of the process for you, and then the highest. What was the best part of the process for you guys making these films?
Oh, okay. I would say the toughest part for me was wanting to do the film justice, but putting my ego aside and just being present with it, because I knew how much it meant to me to tell this story, and how much it meant to Danielle and all the filmmakers with it. So I was like, we're gonna do this. It's a big film, it's a big role, it's a big responsibility, and I just wanted to meet it. And then I think my highest would be working with Danielle. She's really cool, obviously, a lot of you got to meet her, but being an actress, and it's her first time directing, as an actor, she was so warm and giving and generous, and you were so kind and respectful for me and my craft, and it made something like that you got to see, it made me feel safe to go to those places that I knew I wanted to get to in my performance.
Excellent.
Thanks, Jody. I agree with your first part, that just giving justice to the material, but I would say the hardest thing from like a making the actual short film standpoint was COVID.
Oh yeah.
We tried to shoot it before COVID. We got shut down when COVID happened. Like, this was initially March of 2020 when we were about to start filming, and everything got shut down. And that was already like 6 months prior of like writing it and trying to get it ready and figuring out all the funding and casting Jody and Charlie and all that stuff. So COVID was a huge hurdle, and then it took a year later that we finally shot it. So that was the biggest obstacle to overcome. And the highest point was just getting it made. Like, I know those are very extremes, but like in the end, I think it was 2 years of work on this, and like so many people that showed me so much love and support and guidance throughout the years, that I was just happy to finally accomplish it and get it done. And so that was definitely the highest point. And the reaction it's getting now, I mean, the acceptance it's getting, so.
Excellent.
And the conversations it's starting.
Yeah, great.
I was going to say, if COVID happens again, you come to Tennessee, girl. We were shut down for like 4 days. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't even a thing. We're like, what's happening over in LA? So the biggest challenge for me was that 3 days before we were supposed to shoot the film in Nashville, I called the actor who was supposed to be the waiter, and he informed me that he indeed lived in LA and not Nashville. And I booked him saying the film was in Nashville, and he responded saying he was local to Nashville. Clearly lost in translation because he was French. So anyway, my husband, who runs this restaurant group, called this guy that he knew who's a bartender that had done some acting, who was the waiter in the film, Jacob, but he'd really done very minimal stuff. So I booked him like 3 days before the shoot. So that was the biggest challenge. Was I thought, okay, the whole thing's gonna fall apart. And then the high was kind of like you said. I mean, it was a book trailer that turned into something more. So I think I was just grateful that people responded well, and that it's had, it's kind of taken on a life of its own, which I wasn't expecting. So clearly I'm in the wrong business. I should probably not be writing books anymore, but maybe doing more visual content. Yeah, so anyway, but it was, overall it was a great experience.
Excellent.
So my challenge is, buckle up. This is why I should never be a location scout. My challenge is that we shot it in one motel room. Our credits were 5 seconds because we had 5 people. That was my cast and crew. That's it. The director was a cinematographer. The editor, like everybody had triple duty. The motel, which I did not know, was a hotbed of drug activity. There were 3 overdoses and only 1 survived in the span of 36 hours that we were there. So when you hear the ambulances, the cops, the dogs, the rain, That's not like stuff that we're like, hey, this will sound cool. That's literally happening outside of our door.
Oh my gosh.
So seeing the overdoses, seeing the stretchers, the vomiting, the 2 people that died upstairs left behind 2 small children, like it was just, and we had a child on set. So we had, it was like a film within a film. So we sent her away for like a 3-hour dinner. Hopefully, you know, the police would clear, the detectives, all the tape. It didn't. That's just how it was. And the last shot we shot was me in the mirror. And our director, and I should tell you, our director, who can't be, she's at another film festival with this film right now. She shot this film, edited it, and was our cinematographer 1 month before she graduated high school.
Wow.
And this film, this is like its 47th festival.
Oh my God.
It has gone to Oscar qualifying, BAFTA, it's gone like, it's wild. But I will say, so anyway, my point is when we did that last shot in the mirror, she Clint Eastwooded it. She was like, one and done, baby, we gotta get out of here. Like, I'm not staying, like, because we had bed bugs. The roach was there. I mean, it was just, so that was a challenge because it was heartbreaking. It was tragic, and I think it embedded itself on us. The highlight, I cannot reiterate enough, getting it done. Well, actors, I mean, we'll find a million excuses not to do, suddenly my house needs cleaning, you know, but like, just do it. Your script, it's gonna suck. I'm sorry, it is. Your first draft, your second draft, your 20th is gonna probably be worse than your third. That's just how it is. Just do it. My gosh, you literally have one life. What's the worst? Your script is not gonna kill you. Like, it won't. It'll feel like it. Do it and just move on. And nobody asked for my unsolicited advice. So sorry about that, but yes.
Well,
and the
47
conversation.
festivals later, I think you know. I think you know what you're doing.
I made a movie in my living room about adopting cats. Not a lot of problems.
No cat incidents, no cat pee or anything? No
We did have, I had a sound person who was awesome, who called me the day before we were going to shoot. And I don't know if anybody else experiences this, but you can get a lot of things reasonable, but a sound mixer on set, you never get cheap. It's one of the things you have to pay for. I mean, I did pay everybody on my set, but she called me the day before, and I loved her. I had a long conversation. Everything's going to be great. And she called me and she said, I just booked like a 2-week commercial that starts tomorrow morning. And I'm like, fuck you, it's one day. You know. And she said, but I've got somebody booked for you to replace me, so you'll be fine. And I said, okay, great. And we had an 8 o'clock call, and the girls came, and everything was set, and we'd pre-lit the night before. And we're sitting there, and we're waiting, and there's no sound person. And she finally shows up, and we're ready to shoot, because I shot it all in one day. And it was, the girls learned everything theater style, so we just shot the whole 9 minutes. You know, they just went start to finish for every angle. So it was 3 this way, 3 this way, 3 this way, 2 over the back, and then one moving shot at the beginning. And we were all, we were sitting there ready, and I'm like, we have a lot of shit to get done in a day, even though it's not a lot of shit, And she shows up, and she was lovely, but man, she suddenly just went all diva and was like, well, everybody waits for lighting, everybody waits for makeup, but nobody ever wants to wait for sound. And I'm like, honey, I waited like an hour and 10 minutes for you to show up. But apparently, she had been on a night shoot, finished at 6 o'clock in the morning, had to drive all the way to the valley to pick up her equipment and come back. So I didn't say I waited an hour and a half. I'm like, no, everything's going to be great. Thank you. We have all the time in the world. Don't worry. Meanwhile, my producer's walking back and forth, and I'm like, it's okay. I can push in. It'll be fine. But that was really the only thing. Luckily, the girls were great, and we never had a fluff. And I did it all with one of the. I'm going off. I'm doing a you.
I love this.
I'm doing a you. I wanted it to be small. All my other shorts are big. Like you guys, like, you know, outside and in the desert and freaking build things. And yeah, I can do that. And I wanted to do this exercise in small. And so when I met my DP, who's not my regular DP, I said to her, okay, fine, I've worked in the industry a really long time. And Roger Deakins, I worked on a set with Roger Deakins, and he lit with all practical lights, so that's what we're going to do. And if he can do it, you can do it. And so we had no grip truck, no electric, no Jenny, no everything. It was all lit with practicals. But I will share a really awesome thing for everybody. There's a set of light bulbs that you can buy or rent that all sync up to an iPad that are all cinema temperatures, and you basically put them in all your practical lights, and you can dim them and go through the whole range of temperature. It's freaking awesome. And I'm like, I am never going anywhere without these things now. But we didn't, so there wasn't any issue about turning around or moving or seeing anything. We had no cinema lights whatsoever. So that was, you know, she was on board with it, which was great. And I had a really great colorist who was able to match everything, because we shot, I'm in the Blackmagic collector, so I shouldn't really say this out loud, but we shot in a Blackmagic, and they're flat. You know, it's hard to get the warmth of the color. But I had a really great colorist, and he did a fantastic job from Moscow, and then Putin went to war, and I couldn't pay him. And I couldn't find him. And finally he popped up, and he had got out and got to Serbia, and I was able to send him money to a relative in Serbia. But we were all panic-stricken that he had been, you know, conscripted.
Oh my gosh.
But so I guess I did have a couple of issues.
And you'll need to share the iPhone lighting link as well for us all. So, and finally, what was your roller coaster ride?
The entire film. You know, it seems like a lot of you guys filmed it or were about to film it during 2020. I wrote the script a little bit before, like maybe in 2019, and then junior film came. I decided not to pitch. I was like, I want to make it a musical. I want to wait until I get more producers and just like, because they tell you when you pitch your idea that if you don't have like production stuff planned, you're not going to get picked. So I was kind of like trying to pick my battles, like I'll wait till senior. And then junior hit. We didn't shoot anything because it was the lockdown. We couldn't shoot. And I decided that I didn't want to go through that again, so I pushed back my senior film that I was supposed to take the next semester to like the next semester. So basically the crew that I had originally has graduated, and I couldn't use them anymore. And so I had like slightly underclass people, and then like one or two people that was in my class from the beginning there. And those were the only people in my set, the two people in my class, and everyone else was in their own little group. They didn't know me that well, so they're all like in their own little clique. So like I wanted to ask a lot of them, like, oh, you're a great producer, can you join me? And they're like, oh no, I already agreed to this film and that film and this film. I was like, okay. And then so I asked a bunch of my friends that weren't in any of the classes. But when you do that, as much as I was like grateful that they were helping me out, they also like, oh, it's not my class, so I'm just not going to work on this art thing today. And I was like, okay, when is it going to happen? Because like the film is next week, and we need to, you know, work on it. So a lot of it, like, I had to bounce around different groups and different heads, and kind of bug people, be like, hey, you know, like, can we work on this project? It's coming up. It's my like kind of my senior thesis, you know. So it's just like a lot of like ups and downs throughout the film. We lost a lot of footage that we had to reshoot. Yeah, and then the reshoot got canceled, and then the house that we were using, which was like the people on set, it was their house, they're like renting it together. They're all like moving out like in a few weeks, and so we only had a limited time to do the reshoots. Then the person that we used the piano for was going to sell it literally the next day. So like there was no way to kind of cover that that reshoot. We got some shots, but we couldn't get all of them. So I had to zoom in on a lot of master shots in post. It was a roller coaster, but you know, on set, despite all the ups and downs and loss, I like tried my best to keep a good spirit and keep a good front for everyone and make sure everyone was okay. And we shot in 3 days, and there's only 2 locations in the whole film. We used Christian high school as our school, and their house, we used the inside of the house, and then we used the garage for both garages. We kind of flipped on both sides, and then I made sure my colorist hey, can you color it differently, but yeah, the biggest challenge was kind of the entire thing.
Welcome to filmmaking.
Yeah, we made
And
it
what was
work,
the biggest
though.
high of that then? That'll be our final question. What was the biggest high for you then? You had all this ups and downs. What was the...
I think losing the footage was the biggest letdown, because you think you have something, and then you go in there and you're like, oh, that's gone. And we already knew something was missing. We made a choice that we're going to do a reshoot, and we didn't get that reshoot. And so when that happened, that was just a huge disappointment. And so I was like, okay, well, we need more shots, but we can't get it. So just gonna have to make these 2 shots that we got from this entire scene work, and hopefully I pulled it off.
Well, hands up, does anyone think she pulled it off? I think we all know she pulled it off. And for each and every challenge, it's just so fascinating that we wouldn't have known any of the chaos and the trauma and everything behind all this. So it's amazing. So big round of applause again to the filmmakers for phenomenal films. So we're starting our next screening in 5 minutes, but I'm delighted to report the bar is open. You can continue your questions and networking, and remember to vote for your favourite film from this block as well. There's a QR code conveniently at the bar.